Yeah, I will say this. I feel like when you're a movie studio and obviously you've paid money to make a movie, you have to find a way to get your money back, at least, if not make a profit. And we know Warner Brothers has had some issues with DC making a profit on some of these movies. I'm pretty sure that's probably where that advertising went into it with the Batman focus. Was they're like, we need to get people to still see this movie, so we need to get them really hyped to go see Michael Keaton back as Batman.
Yes, and I agree. I think that was like, this is going to be...
Welcome back to the Movie Dads Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
That's Kyle. Kyle, it's episode 11.
It's wild.
It's wild. Episode 11. Episode 10 last week. Batman and Batman Returns. Transition into episode 11. The movie I was most hyped for this summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Flash.
Same.
We've got The Flash gets his first solo movie.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Keaton's back as Batman. We know we get Supergirl. Zod's back. All these things we saw in the trailers. Whew, there was a lot more than that. Lots to unpack. Lots to talk about. Movie Dads Podcast, episode 11. Andy Machete's DC Extended Universe, The Flash. If you're not familiar with the podcast, or if you are, we do a new movie every other week, which that's what we're doing this week. We're doing our big premiere movie of the week, The Flash. We will give our thoughts on the movie, give a spoiler warning, and then deep dive into some of the interesting or not so interesting bits of the movie afterwards, after the spoiler warning. So that way you can go ahead and skip ahead to the next segment.
I feel like there's a bit of foreshadowing there.
There's a lot to talk about. You notice how I didn't say the instant DC classic, because it's not.
No. Are you sure that's because of how the movie quality is, or just because you hate DC?
No, I don't hate DC. I don't hate any kind of movie. I don't hate any genre of movie.
I do love is that a Watchmen shirt you're rocking?
So it's a crossover. It's a Star Wars crossover.
Oh, let's go Darth Maul.
Yeah, so it just says Apprentice up the side. Yeah, I get a lot of comments on this shirt because I've never seen
Rorschach is great, and so is Darth Maul.
You're right. They both got killed too soon.
Agreed. Well, Rorschach was it's one movie. It's one story.
It's one story.
They brought him back in DC, but anyways.
Boy, if you're watching us on YouTube, please kick the like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Give us a share. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. Tell everybody if you like the content. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Index. You can also find us on social media at Movie Dads Pod, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And
Kyle, I was on
Pigeon.
Carrier Pigeon. We're not on Twitter. Nope, not gonna do it.
Oh, you were. I was talking actual Carrier Pigeon, but okay.
But I was on vacation at the beginning of this week. No social media content whatsoever. I apologize. I spent time with my family. How dare I? It's not. I mean, like if we had 700 subscribers, I'd be a little bit more. But bam, let's go.
Yeah, that's true. All 77 of our people.
Yeah, 77 is a good number.
We're getting up there. If we hit 100, I'll be shocked.
We're popping bottles.
I thought it was going to take us 10 years to get more than 10. I guess there's 77 people out there that like us, or 25 people that have multiple accounts.
That's right. That makes me sad when I think about it that way. But we're here. Guys, as always, our segments of the week. After we follow up with the beginning, we will go to our 6 to midnight, which is movie news that gets us excited. This week, we'll go to our big premiere movie of the week, and then we'll finish it off with my favorite segment. There can be only 5.
Only 5.
Only 5. But we are movie dads. We have movie kids. So a couple things to talk about this week. So we were in Minnesota at my dad's house, and Des, my 6-year-old, learned to kneeboard this week behind the boat.
Nice.
Like a rock star. Kneeboarding's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but the kid did a pretty good job. Obviously, we weren't going like 30 miles an hour in the boat or anything, but kept his balance. He's all wiggling along behind the boat. It was pretty neat. And then my daughter, Reagan, 12-year-old, finishes softball this weekend, but right now she's working on a project for me. You can't really see it, but she's alphabetizing the DVDs.
Nice.
And they're coming out of the cases, and I'm putting them in binders to free up some space in my basement. So
look at you getting rid of the library.
Well, I'm not getting rid of it. I'm just
compacting.
I've come to the point where I think I will no longer be purchasing anything on a digital video disc. So they're okay to put away. I don't have to worry about moving them around, and it's going to free up a lot of space because I have like 8 shelves of DVDs. So
I think about that all the time, of like having a DVD, but like how it's like, why would I do that when I could purchase something digitally? But then I have the thought of like, what if that business goes out of business? Like, then I have to repurchase this digitally. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you buy a movie like through Xbox or whatever, and they go out of business. Not that
I wouldn't think Microsoft would go out of business. I wouldn't think Amazon. But I mean,
you wouldn't have thought a lot of companies wouldn't have gone out of business that have, right?
Well, I think Microsoft and Amazon both do a good job of adapting, and they change with the time.
I thought the Galactic Star Cruiser would last forever too, but here we are.
More than a year
later.
One thing I will say though is like I go to Canada every year, go fishing, right? And like you're not watching anything digitally because
Canada,
internet's not happening where we stay. So I always pack a Blu-ray player and need those physical copies of movies.
Yeah, if the world comes to an end, if there is a post-apocalyptic world we have to live in, we need DVD players to continue to watch, even if
classics
there's
show
no
our
power.
Children. Yeah, I mean we're gonna have like the donkey spin. When the wheels generate electricity.
Just the paddle bike. That's what we'll put our kids to do. Generate
Watch this
power.
movie.
My kids this week, they both are playing baseball for the first time. Grayson's playing coach pitch, and Parker is playing like t-ball, but it's less baseball and more herding cats. Originally, apparently my wife had signed me up to be the coach of the t-ball team.
Oh my.
Which I found out like the day before, and I didn't want to do it. Those of you who know, I did coach college football at one point for a few years, and so like had been away from the coaching game and just thought, you know what, I know it's little kids, but I'm going to step out. But the coach on the second week of practice, so literally they only do one game a week and they practice on the same day. He couldn't be there, so I had to coach, and I had a blast, and the kids had a blast, and the parents just had a great time. It was like just so much fun, and Parker is awesome. He tries really hard. He is really helpful with the other players. Grayson, like because his game is after, he came and basically like helped as like my assistant coach for the whole practice and game. So like he was helping herd the cats around, and they're so hilarious, but it was so much fun. And I like immediately regretted like not just being the coach. And I think some of the parents after the practice came up were like, are you coaching like throughout the rest of the season? So I think they are kind of hoping that I stay on and coach. So I might just be a co-head coach with this guy next week when I see him. So hopefully he's listening to the pod right now.
Next year, we put Grayson and Des on the same team, and then you can coach them, because I'm not a huge fan of Dez's coach.
So we do Grayson or Parker's game in the morning, and it's a blast. Everyone has a great time. And Grayson's coach it's a softball coach and her daughter. They've never coached baseball before, and they seem super knowledgeable about like, the game of baseball, but they've not like coached these kids before, like this level. And it's coach pitch, and like the coach can't pitch to the batters. Like she can't give them balls to hit. So like, and doesn't like coach any of them. So they played a team that they're supposed to be like 7-year-olds or first and second graders. And the team we played last week, they had to be in like 4th or 5th grade because these kids were like turning two and like calling outs and stuff. And the game before that we played, like everyone, like both teams didn't even know where the bags were. So it was like, so I got there, and my mother-in-law was like, "Thank you for getting here. Please go and coach, like do something, because nobody's coaching or telling people what to do." So I immediately just ran out and started. I was the first base coach, telling them when to run the bases and calling them back in and getting them going. So
nice.
I'm going to back away from that team, but if it's like that every Saturday, I'll probably just be that guy. I'm going to be that.
Good.
So,
that's good. Like our coach pitch, the assistant coach is definitely better than the head coach. I'm not worried. He doesn't listen to this, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just, I'm not. There's like, you have to have a patience level, right? When you're coaching 6 and 7-year-olds, like there's a certain patience level, and there's a certain way you have to talk to the kids. Like, he's not. He's talking to them like they're 12, and I'm like, there was one time Des got there right before the game started, right? That he never, we have like a chat, like an app, and he doesn't say like, get here at this time so we can warm up or anything like that. So we get there a few minutes before game time, and they're like, they're doing the drills where like they're all lined up and they're hitting grounders to him, right? And Des goes up and he goes, "All right, time to play." And Des goes, "Oh, I didn't get to do it." And he goes, "Maybe show up early next time."
No.
And this dude's been late like 4 or 5 times to games. Like I'm always sitting there like, oh, look who's late today.
Well, you do that to me all the time to this pod. One of so this last week was the second game. The first game, they forgot to listen, guy. I've got a 6-week-old child, a wife, and 2 maniacs that are running around. We're trying to get this thing done. I do my best.
Don't lie. You were GameStop.
Today was different. We could have went earlier. I told you we could. Anyways, the first game, Grayson wasn't throwing a fit, but like he got really shy when it came to batting. He didn't want to go first. So then they went through, and at this level, they go through like all of the team to bat. They missed him. They forgot to let him go.
Oh.
So like I was just gonna let it fly, and then like my wife was like, he's gonna not bat. You're gonna let them. So I make it sound like me and my wife are these crazy little kid baseball parents, but like we're not. We're like the most chill people ever. So
soccer moms.
We just want people to have like, we want our kids to have fun and
absolutely
and stuff like that. So I had to
paying
go
good money for that.
Yeah. Hey guys, hey, Grayson, you get the bat. Just wanted you guys to know, like, are they going to do another inning, etc.? And they were like, oh we're so sorry. So it's like, hey, it's first game. We're all learning. We're all figuring it out. So anyways, yeah, so that was a lot more of family stuff than we usually talk, but I mean, good stuff. Yeah. Interesting. And I think these stories will get crazier and crazier as our kids get older and older.
Or better and better.
Or better than better. That's true. Let's jump into my most excited segment of the week. So I'm going to jump into our 6 to midnight. Swing. Man, this week, let's go. I think I have kind of talked about this video game maybe on the episode. Maybe I know I've talked with you about it, but this game, so Xbox did like their big game showcase, which everyone pulled out of E3. So they canceled E3. So we don't get that anymore where everyone showcases new games. Right. They all do their own individual thing. So Xbox is doing a showcase, and there's a game by Bethesda, which is the company that makes the Fallout games. They make Skyrim, super memorable games that have been played for years and years and years. They finally decided they were going to make a game called Starfield, which is basically like Fallout and Skyrim in space, like where you can fly around. and it's an open world RPG. I have been stoked for it for like 8 years because they announced it a very long time ago. And it was supposed to come out like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's been delayed multiple times. It was supposed to come out last year. They delayed it to this year, which everyone thought was it was supposed to come out in like October last year. They delayed it to this year. We thought it was going to be in the spring, and then we didn't get any updates all like winter and spring. And then they finally had like a big announcement, and that big announcement was they were doing the showcase this week. And all of the stuff that they'd shown previous to that did not make the game look like that good. And people were kind of like, great, we thought this was going to be awesome, and now this game's going to suck. And they were delaying it to polish it up and make the game better. They're very vocal about like, we don't want to release a broken game, which happens all the time these days.
Oh yeah.
And so they were like, we'll delay it until we feel it's right. And oh my God, this trailer, I sent you probably 45 snaps.
Yes, you did.
It looks beautiful. It looks like the game that I've been waiting for my whole life. Like open world in space, you can create your own starships. You can totally customize what your ship looks like. They were very vocal about like, you can make your ship into anything you want it to be. And so like, it was like, hint, like wink, wink, nod, nod that like, if you want the Millennium Falcon, you can make the Millennium Falcon. But you can go to planets all over the place. You actually, you fly your ship, but you can land on the planets, explore, which there are games out that are like that, No Man's Sky, etc. But Bethesda is like world famous for being like the best story RPG games in the world. And so No Man's Sky has all that space stuff, but there's no substance to the game. There's no story. There's no characters. You're just like exploring vast, boring, no one talking space. But this game for Starfield looks so freaking good. It comes out in September. I am going to take a week, maybe 2 weeks off to play this game. I already know that this will be the game that I'll play for the next like 10, 15 years, just like Skyrim. Like, I don't know if you ever played Skyrim, but that game I have bought on multiple consoles and played it through multiple times. I'm so pumped for that. And if you haven't seen the trailer, go watch it. There's a 45-minute gameplay kind of video, which does really in-depth look at it. It looks so awesome. Some of the planets are like, one planet it's an ocean planet. So think like Camino from Star Wars, but it has a giant tanker, like oil tanker city at the top of like on the surface of the water. That the city is very Blade Runner and like neon lights and like not steampunk, but like cyberpunk. Looks awesome. And then there's a totally different planet. There's different galaxies and sections. Like there's the United Space, which is like, this is colonized. This is ran by the government space agency that runs the galaxy. But then there's the outer galaxies that's like basically the Wild West. It's like space cowboy, like old cowboy Western town type planets. Like it just looks so awesome. If you haven't seen the trailer, go watch it. And then the other one, just because I went on a total rant with that, I won't go too long on this one. But this game was announced like a month or two ago that people thought like, nope, that's not true. There's no way. Basically, it was announced that Ubisoft, however you want to pronounce it, the people that do Assassin's Creed, they are coming out with an open world RPG Star Wars game where you can basically be whoever you want. You can go wherever you want. You have basically the same thing as Starfield in that you can travel to planets. You have your own ship, but it's Star Wars. And there's never really been a game like that, with the exception of like the Old Republic, which is an MMO that's different. And then Knights of the Old Republic, which feels like open world, but it's very linear and there's only like 4 planets, etc. Right. But they showed a like 8 to 12 minute gameplay trailer, and it looks beautiful. It looks so awesome. Like it literally looks like Grand Theft Auto for Star Wars. and your character is like a scoundrel, very much going for the vibes of like Han Solo. I don't know if that's the character that you have to play as, or if you can create and change. I didn't really look at that or hear that. But it's a female character lead was what they showed. She kind of reminds me of like Jyn Erso. But like, it's a cool gameplay trailer. You get to see her kind of cruise through like a kind of a bad guy hideout, to where then she jumps onto a speeder bike and takes off to a little town. As she walks out into the open from this little bad guy hideout, like a wanted, like the whole screen kind of flashes with wanted, like kind of like Grand Theft Auto when you have like the cops are on you, you get stars. So that was cool. You jump on a speeder bike, she cruises all over the planet, and comes into a little town, jumps onto her starship, and you basically watch the starship fly through the clouds into space, and you're basically controlling it up into space, where then she goes into like this galactic kind of battle. It looks awesome. 2 space games that are coming out. That one comes out next year, so I won't have to double dip on them. We'll get to do Starfield and then jump onto that. But man, these games look amazing. If you're a Star Wars fan or a video game fan or any of those types of nerd realms, go check out the trailers. Even if you don't play games, it's worth the time. So
nice.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah. Starfield, you sent me 45 snaps. I actually watched all 45 of them. So that does look like a pretty amazing game.
I was going to say, were you annoyed by that, or were you actually, that game looks awesome?
I was commenting. I sent you replies. I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
That's boy, that's a big one though. So
yeah. Yep. That's
my giggity. My 6 to midnight for this week is a directing roundup. So we got our first bit of director roundup for James Gunn's new Batman movie, The Brave and the Bold. It was announced yesterday that Andy Muschietti, who directed the movie we're reviewing today, The Flash, has been hired to direct The Brave and the Bold.
Interesting decision.
It is an interesting decision. I read some quotes from James Gunn where he talked about how good The Flash was and how he knew he was the right man for the job. And, Andy Muschietti, he directed Mama. Wrote and directed Mama. Which you didn't
see, right?
I haven't seen it. Right, I haven't seen it.
I did like that movie.
I think I've seen the short, but I never saw the full length. Then obviously he was hired on to adapt what many people thought was a very difficult Stephen King adaptation to do, was a big screen version of It. And it was highly successful, and it was extremely well done. So
loved them. Thought they were awesome.
The first one with the kids is exceptional. The second one,
I was going to say, the first one was good, really good.
But man, together they really do make one really great adaptation of that book, because that book it's a long one. So they did a pretty good job. And then he did The Flash, and we're going to talk more about that here in a minute. But so he's going to do Brave and the Bold for the new, whatever it's going to be called, Gun DCverse. I don't know. We'll see what they come up with. And then the other news that I had, so we got a little bit of release date changes for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I got to try and get Marvel in there when I can. So last week we talked about the new Captain America Brave New World, and that it was the summer kickoff next year on May 3rd. It's actually been pushed back. So it's moved from May to late July of 2024, so July 26th. Thunderbolts, which is the Suicide Squad kind of deal for Marvel. They're all kind of villains, and it's a lot of villains from previous movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That one moved from that slot, the July 2024, to right before Christmas, so 12/20/24. Blade pushed back from September of next year to February of 2025. That movie's already moved like 2 or 3 times.
Didn't they change the main actor for Blade?
No, it's still Mahershala Ali. He's still doing it. So I think they changed the director, though. Writer and directors changed. Then the next Avengers movie, Kang Dynasty, is moved from May 25 to May of 26.
Still doing that?
Yep.
Are they recasting that?
Nobody knows yet. I think they're doing very much the wait and see approach.
Yeah.
And then Avengers Secret Wars, which is like the part 2, I think, of the Kang Dynasty, we'll see how close it follows the Secret War comic book, is now moved from May of 26 to May of 27. So they both pretty much moved a year. Now, the one that moved up,
it's gonna be interesting doing those storylines without like seminal characters from
yeah. Well, it's
the characters
end of,
that we care about.
It's
seeing.
the end of the multiverse saga, right? So there's a possibility we could see people. We talked about that a little bit last week. We could see people that haven't been in a movie in a while, because it could bring back different versions.
No one cares about these new ones without the main characters. So throwing that out there.
And then the one that moved up is Deadpool, moved from November next year. It's now the summer kickoff movie. It moved all the way from November to May. So
cool.
Up 6 months.
I'm like pumped for that movie.
Yeah, that's usually good stuff. Well, yeah, we get Wolverine back too, so that's
really why I'm pumped for it.
Yeah. So, well, and Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is
he's good.
Dynamite. So
I think I liked Deadpool 2 better than I liked Deadpool 1. I think.
I didn't. I liked the first one better. I didn't have any issues with the second one. I just liked the first one better, but they were both good.
Yeah, they were both good.
It's one of those things with sequels where a lot of times like they'll make the first movie and you can tell the movie has a much lower budget, and they focus more on the story and the dialogue and all that, right? And then they make the second one. They're like, let's get as many characters and cram special effects into it.
Yeah, I also
sometimes it takes away, but
you know me and my villain nerddom. I really liked the Juggernaut, and like thought he got shafted in the first series. So like,
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
Yes, there's our first clip of the episode. I really liked that character in the Deadpool. I thought he was like freaking terrifying.
Well, you know who played him?
Who played him?
Ryan Reynolds.
He did the Juggernaut too?
He did.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was both.
Also, Cable was in that movie. That was a fucking badass movie.
It was.
I
and Josh Brolin, he's a badass anyway.
Josh Brolin is fucking badass.
Yeah.
Anyways, way off track. So
no, you're good.
Okay.
Love that. So that's where we're at with that. So that's our 6 to midnight of this week. News that we're excited about. It's video game news, and we got some comic book movie news. I even threw some DC in there just to keep Kyle happy.
Each did there.
So that takes us into our big premiere movie of the week, the 2023 end of the DC extended universe, Andy Muschietti's The Flash. Now, just a reminder, we will give a spoiler warning before we dive into spoilers. So the beginning of this, we'll just touch on things that you may have seen in trailers or it's pretty much common knowledge. So I started off this episode. I was the most hyped for this movie. Like, I'm going on 3 hours of sleep last night because I had a really early morning for work this morning, but I wasn't going to miss not seeing that thing last night because, man, I was hyped. I was hyped because I liked The Flash. I liked Ezra Miller's The Flash in the Justice League movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did a really good job. I thought he was entertaining. Again, this has nothing to do with him as a piece of crap human being, but then, of course, you know, we've been sitting on the news for like a year and a half, 2 years that Michael Keaton was returning as Batman.
Yeah.
And like, let's get nuts.
Let's go.
Let's get nuts. Man, I was so excited for that. You know, we knew this was going to be a Flashpoint adaptation. Overall, they kept a lot of the main elements of Flashpoint in it. Which I thought was good. You know, they changed a lot too for DCEU purposes. Most of it, I think, worked. You know, I thought those changes were okay. It didn't take away, I think, from anything that the main story of Flashpoint really tried to convey. Man, when we got done with this movie, I think we went with my brother-in-law, Tony. I think we all had the same reaction. We were
Tony, shout out. I know he doesn't listen to this anymore, but
he doesn't, but he'll get on here one day. I think we all had the same reaction when we got done. It was like, I don't know how I feel about that movie.
Yeah. I was like, I need to marinate. That needs to marinate. I'm glad we're not recording tonight immediately after.
Right.
Because it was a movie. It was a movie.
I texted you earlier today. I think if somebody said, was it good or bad? I would say yes.
There's and not to dive into spoilers and stuff, but
Right.
I, like you, was super pumped for this movie, and like the second that Keaton was announced as returning as Batman, like I went 6 to midnight because he's freaking awesome. So was just pumped to see him back. I think kind of the trailers really went hard in the paint in showcasing Batman and making it feel like he was not the main part of the movie, but it was almost, I think it has a lot to do with the stuff that's going on with Ezra Miller and the real world, which, before we jump into anything, we do not condone anything of what's going on with Ezra Miller as a human, or the horrible things that he's done. And he is horrible. We're strictly just reviewing this movie and the how that movie went and the actors that were in it. So I think because of what was going on with him, they really went hard in the paint with all the trailers and stuff on Batman, which I would have done too. And for me, that was kind of the main draw of the movie. Not that I don't like the Flash or didn't like Ezra Miller. I do like him in the Justice League, like you mentioned. And I think a lot of people didn't like him in the Justice League movie. I actually did, and I liked his costume as well. I thought he looked kind of cool. It was a movie.
Yeah, I will say this. I feel like when you're a movie studio, and obviously you've paid money to make a movie, you have to find a way to get your money back, at least, if not make a profit. And we know Warner Brothers has had some issues with DC making a profit on some of these movies. I'm pretty sure that's probably where that advertising went into it with the Batman focus. Was they're like, we need to get people to still see this movie, so we need to get them really hyped to go see Michael Keaton back as Batman.
Yes, and I agree. I think that was like, this is going to be our main draw to this movie. And there's another thing in terms of like saving money and budget and stuff that we'll dive in more on the spoiler side. But I liked that we got 2 Ezra Millers. I mean, you've seen it in the trailer that there's, we get kind of a younger and an older one. It wasn't a bad movie. Like you said, was it good? Was it bad? Yes. I love the Flashpoint story. So I really liked kind of that they followed that arc. I do think like they do a really good job with kind of hitting on the points of that with like the Flash, like in the Flashpoint story, he lost his mom. He's trying to get her back. So like, there's some powerful stuff to that.
Yes. It's a very emotional movie. I think they do it very well. A lot about loss and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Because if you're not familiar with like Flashpoint, and I don't think this is spoilery because we're talking about a story that's forever years old, but Barry Allen's backstory: his mom gets murdered, his dad goes to jail for it, right? And so Barry's main focus is to get his dad out and make sure that the system doesn't fail other people. That's kind of Barry's. It's kind of Batman-ish, but Barry's obviously a very different character, and he's motivated a different way based on the tragedy he was faced with. You see a lot of that in the movie, and I think Ezra Miller does a good job of conveying that. Again, I think he did it. I think he was exceptional, especially playing 2 different roles.
That's a really good.
Yeah, and we see Supergirl. We don't have Superman. We have Supergirl in the movie. Zod's back as a villain. I thought Michael Shannon's not in the movie a ton, but man, he's a really good villain. He's a great actor. He's not, he's not super well known to a lot of people. He's like, oh, it's that guy from Zod. It's the guy that played Zod. That's how a lot of people don't know his name, but he's in a ton of really great movies.
I freaking love him as Zod. He is.
Yes. Yeah. He's fantastic.
So good.
Hey man, I want to recommend people, like, I want to say, go. You think you need to see this movie once, Like, especially if you're a comic book movie fan, if nothing else, to see Michael Keaton
as Batman.
I mean, if nothing else, it's worth the price of admission for that.
Sure. That's a great point. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a movie that, like, I think it'd be more interesting to see it in the theater. I'm glad that we did go that route. You have to at least see it. Keaton being back as Batman, like, this is part of the Batman Returns universe now. So I
hope people see this and, like, they can tell we're very conflicted about, like, the way we want to review this movie.
Like, we're just how do I talk about this movie without jumping into spoilers?
This is episode 11, right? We've done like 6 new movies, right? This is the worst one. Like, we were talking about when we did Spider-Man 2 weeks ago. Remember how we were talking about, like, we've been blessed with all these great movies. Like, we did Mario, and we did Evil Dead, and we did Guardians, and we did Dungeons and Dragons. Like, these are all great movies. Spider-Man was the best. So far, this is the worst one that we've done since we started this podcast.
I think in terms of, like, no, I don't disagree with that. I think you're right, and that this is compared to those movies in terms of overall quality. But I would rather go see this or rewatch this than, like, I would for, like, Evil Dead or
that's fair. But again,
Dungeons and Dragons. But it has a lot to do with Batman, Keaton.
Correct. Yeah.
Like,
I've watched Dungeons and Dragons like 4 or 5 times, right? Like, but to be fair, I've already bought tickets to go see this movie again tomorrow because I'm taking my kids, because my kids want to see it. Like, Des loves The Flash. I'm going to let him go see it. I'll go see it again so I can get the IMAX poster.
I want that poster too.
I'll try to get it.
Honestly, that was one of the things that this movie did really great, in that this is way more kid friendly than Guardians 3.
In terms of, like, for sure. And his mom gets murdered in the movie, but it's not as bad as watching Rocket Raccoon get dissected.
Yeah. The score that they did was, like, interesting. It was very like old school kind of symphony. And like, anytime the Flash was doing, like, Flash stuff, it felt like kind of 90s cartoon like tone of what they were kind of going for. Maybe not cartoon, but just, like, kind of goofy, like, WB movies. So
they even did a great job of incorporating songs into some of his scenes too, where, like, some for the fight scenes and whatnot. And then like, every time Batman's on screen, they kind of play the Batman theme song every time he's doing something. Which is great. I
did like that.
Yeah.
So
we'll get into the spoiler part. Like, listen, again, if you're a comic book movie fan, probably go see this movie once. Like, curb your expectations, because there were some early reviews that came out that said, like, this is one of the greatest comic book movies ever. It's not.
Yeah.
Get that out of the way. Okay. Yeah, I'd go see it. I don't want to say wait for streaming. I think it's something that's worth seeing on the big screen. Maybe go on a Tuesday when it's $5. There you go.
Yeah, that's great.
You can wait. You don't need to go this weekend. You can wait till Tuesday and save some money.
I think my kid would like it. Like, I think actually both my kids are going to really enjoy it. And we'll probably enjoy it a lot more than I think, like, Grayson did for the Guardians. That's just speaking for my kids. So, I mean, can we jump into the spoilers so we can, like, actually talk about this movie?
Here's your spoiler warning. Back off. Jump ahead to there can be only 5. This is it.
Leave.
Okay.
Get out of here.
That's it.
Okay.
Bro, the special effects. What the?
It was so the CGI. When you mentioned, like, budget and saving face, it very much felt like a kind of a classic DC thing, that once they get through filming or a certain part of filming or a certain part of just, like, the production of a movie, that they go, ooh, this isn't what we think it's going to be. Cut losses and get this thing out. Like, it was very clear that they did not take the time or the money to polish up their CG in this movie.
If you had issues with Henry Cavill's mustache in Justice League, you wait.
Yeah.
It took away from the movie because it's so bad in some parts.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like once you get to the third act, the whole movie almost like has to be CG to film
Jesus.
the just the scenes that they did.
We talk about movies
Yeah,
from the 90s, like Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park and stuff. Like, why in 2023 does a movie's special effects look this bad? It's
yeah,
it's pathetic. I mean, like,
yeah.
that's the way I feel about it. This movie had a cool story. It followed Flashpoint pretty well. Like I said, it made a lot of changes, but the basic, like,
Yeah.
man.
Here's what I'll say. Like, I love Keaton Batman. We got
Mhm.
more like action Keaton Batman in this
Yes.
movie than in like all of the other movies combined. I would say that's probably accurate.
We talked about that last week, that it was all camera tricks and stuff because he couldn't move in that suit.
For sure. And
Definitely
they
different.
like so we got to see that Batman do things that we literally never got to see him do when he was
Correct.
like 28 and now he's 70. So it was just kind of like hard to buy, but he was by far the best part of the movie in
Yes.
terms of like for me, like that was why I went to see the movie. I think I overhyped myself for thinking like this is going to be just basically a Keaton Batman Returns sequel. It was very Flash focused. Obviously, it's a Flash movie, but I didn't know what they were going to do with Ezra's kind of background
No, but
issues.
in my
So
head, like, I had this, like, seeing the trailers and stuff, I'm like, this is a Flash and Batman, like, buddy cop movie.
yes, and it wasn't. It was a
Correct.
Flash and Flash buddy cop movie.
Correct.
Which here's the thing that I will say about Ezra Miller's role in this movie. The one thing that didn't irk me, like I said earlier, I liked him in Justice League. He just felt kind of goofy and weird and just like
Yeah.
off. And I
Yeah.
like couldn't help but think like this is a Jared Leto moment where like the actor is just being weird with the character. But then we got this movie where he meets his younger self, where his mom actually lives and didn't die. And he's not a socially awkward weirdo who can't talk to people and talks like with a stutter and weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's very different with confidence and how he acts and how he talks. And
His
like
friends.
he has friends and just, they did actually a really good job in this movie of showing like the polar opposite versions of Barry
Mm-hmm.
Allen Flash,
Yes.
if he has his mom or if he didn't. And I liked it. Like we did get basically two totally different Barry Allen Flashes in the movie. And that's kind of a credit to Ezra. And it really made me realize like, oh, that's not just Ezra being like weird and maybe not understanding the character.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt part of the story of like, there's a reason why he's so weird and socially awkward. And I thought that was, I will say, a really good part of the movie.
I completely agree. I think that whole dynamic where he's devoted his life to trying to prove his dad is innocent and and work on the, forensic part and trying to make sure everybody doesn't get screwed over again. And like the people that he works with call him out. They're like, oh, who cares? And he's like, this is what I need to do. I need to fix things. I need to make sure this doesn't happen to somebody again.
Yeah.
And you see his motivation and how devoted he is to it. And like, you can also tell, like at the beginning when you can tell as the Flash, like in the Justice League, he's the like redheaded stepchild, right?
Yeah.
You can tell. And that I think has to do with his quirkiness and but he understands that, and he understands why
calls
he's
himself the janitor of the Justice League.
Yeah.
I'm the janitor when he's talking to Alfred.
Yeah. I agree. I think both Barrys were they were really good, but I think, and again, this is really spoilery right now. I think it was anybody who kind of watched the trailers and saw like the toys and stuff that were coming out. Like we knew there was a Dark Flash. I think it was, I felt like it was pretty clear at the beginning that young Barry was going to turn into Dark Flash. Like I felt like that. I felt that was obvious.
See, I didn't pick up on that at all. I did not.
The whole time, every time I saw a trailer and stuff, I just was like, I wonder when he turns. Like I kind of had that pegged from the beginning that he was Dark Flash.
See, that's good to say. I honestly had no, I didn't think about that at all.
Yeah.
I thought there's no way they're going to make, it was the second that thing got stuck in his arm and he had all of a sudden he had this blade and he was like, what? That was the moment that I was like, oh my God, he's the bad guy. What?
So the thing that I thought was done really well was the young Barry realizes that older Barry is there because he grew up without his mom because his mom was killed. And so when it comes to the point in the movie where our Barry realizes they can't win. They're going to lose. Young Barry's like, no, I can't do that. I have to fix it. And that's his motivation. And that's how he turns into Dark Flash. Because he spends years trying to find a way to win.
A lifetime, essentially.
Yeah, his whole life. Trying to find a way to win, but they can't.
Yeah.
I am going to say, that does prove that two Flashes, Michael Keaton's Batman and Supergirl, don't hold a candle to Henry Cavill's Superman, apparently, because he found a way to win. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. That's one thing that I think this movie does a really good job of conveying, that I think Henry Cavill's Superman, people hate on that because he killed someone when he took out Zod, and then he becomes this weird kind of angry bad guy in the other movies. Not really a bad guy, but you know what I mean. This movie did a good job of really making you feel like Henry Cavill's Superman is really important to the world.
Right. Correct.
And very needed. And I think that is, thank God they did a tip to him, because, man. What were you going to say?
I was going to start getting into the cameos.
Man. We talked a little bit about that when we were walking out. It's I felt like they had a chance to do.
They had a chance to do
really
a lot.
Cool, for sure.
So again, we're super spoilery here.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little glimpse of different worlds, right? Different versions of different superheroes, right? We get to see a Christopher Reeve Superman, which looks fake as hell.
Yeah, we're think Tarkin and Leia in Star Wars, but 10 million times worse.
A billion times worse. It straight up looked like late 90s. Somebody did it on their freaking laptop. I don't know.
Yeah. It looked like a PC game from the 90s.
Yeah, we got a George Reeves Superman, got an Adam West Batman.
Mm-hmm.
The big one that we actually knew was coming because Andy Muschietti kind of dropped it early was we got a Nick Cage Superman, which anybody who's not familiar with the story was Kevin Smith was hired to make a Superman movie, and Nick Cage was going to be, no, it was Tim Burton. Was it Tim Burton?
No, it was Kevin Smith.
Yeah, was going to make
Kevin Smith. It was Tim Burton. Kevin Smith did the movie about that movie.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, and okay, so there was
a great movie. Go watch that, guys.
They even threw the giant spider in there, which if you know that reference, that Kevin Smith reference, it's hilarious.
Yes. Yeah, that's because that's what was pitched for the movie. That was going to be the big part of the movie was him fighting a giant spider.
Anyway, okay, so Kevin Smith does this evening thing where he stands up, he's in front of a college, and he talks about the Nick Cage Superman and how John Peters, the producer who did all these DC movies, was well, he's going to fight a giant spider. And Kevin Smith's fuck are you talking about? I'm not going to do that. That's dumb. I'm not writing that. And then he said the next movie John Peters produced was Wild Wild West, where at the end Will Smith has to fight a giant spider.
Giant spider. I didn't.
So anyway, in this Nick Cage cameo, he fights a giant spider, which was talk about a tip of the cap to some obscure comment. Nick Cage looks like fake as hell cartoon. I was hoping it was going to actually be Nick Cage in a costume.
Yeah,
but it was clearly not.
they CG'd the
Whole
the
thing.
screen testing. Basically just the one they used for the screen test pictures that came out of Nick Cage. Anyways, yeah, I honestly, the big one for me was was Superman, that not that Superman, the other Superman that I thought we were going to get more. I didn't realize the cameos were just going to be us getting like just a quick like glimpse of their like
into
worlds.
their like a window into their world.
Yeah. I extra spoiler, they freaking the Batman that shows up at the end is fucking George Clooney Batman. And I think you and I both looked at each other and were kind of like, man, they missed out on, like, they could have actually done something really cool.
They picked the worst one.
They picked the worst ones. Like, what if Christian Bale was the cameo Batman? Like, that would have been
He must have
awesome.
said no. He had to have said no.
Oh, but I would imagine.
But I don't, like, why would you say no to a 10-second scene? You
yeah.
know?
Yeah, like...
Maybe they wanted Clooney all along, but...
When it was George Clooney, it was like, oh my God, why?
Yeah, because it was like, who is it? Is it Keaton again? Is it Christian Bale? Oh, no, it's George Clooney.
Yeah, where I was like, are you fun? Yeah, so like cameos, I feel like they thought they were doing things that people would think was really cool, but it felt more like they were going for something that was going to be really kind of funny, of like, oh, remember that's super goofy, and they fell flat. All of them.
And there was even a post-credit scene.
I was just about to say that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say it. I mean, you can say what the scene is, but I think it's the worst post-credit scene in a movie ever. He got nothing.
So Jason Momoa is not in the entire movie. Nothing. Wonder Woman shows up at one point.
Yeah, I forgot about
Cyborg's not in it at all, but we kind of figured that wasn't going to happen with his relationship with Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, basically, Barry and Jason Momoa are walking out of a bar, and Barry's trying to explain to Aquaman about like what happened and how Batman had changed and what he had gone through and all that. And Aquaman's just a drunk schlub. That's the whole scene.
Totally drunk.
Like passes out in a puddle. This is supposed to
passes out in a puddle.
That's the whole scene. Was it. It's pointless.
That
like you just like, why are all these cameos so like crowbarred in?
Weird.
Yeah.
This is how Liberty dies.
The movie's a mess. It's a mess.
It is a mess. That was, I think, the word we used the most after. It was like it just felt like a mess. There was a lot going on. I know the Flashpoint story itself is very like, okay, Barry goes back in time and it changes everything, and now Batman's not actually Batman. Or Bruce Wayne. It's Thomas Wayne. And
right.
Like Joker was not
Martha Wayne.
Joker. Yeah, it ends up being his mom. Like, I know the story itself is very convoluted and there's a lot going on.
They cut out that stuff that still kept like the main focus.
Yes.
Right? They cut out the Wonder Woman and Aquaman, like big world war,
the Civil War,
love problem, whatever. Cut all that out.
Yep.
And they followed Barry's story completely. Nothing else.
Yeah, and I think with the actual Flashpoint story, like one of the things that makes it so like powerful and emotional is that Batman, when the Flash goes and tells him like, I'm from the future and I screwed up the past, you're not actually Batman, your son's supposed to be Batman. Like Batman says like, wait, Bruce lives in your universe, and like with that was why Batman decides to help.
That's his motivation, yeah.
Ultimately, that's why Batman goes all the way to basically sacrifice himself to save Barry.
Correct.
So that there's one of like the coolest comic book / movie moments from the cartoon where Thomas Wayne, Batman, before he dies, gives a letter to Flash to give to Bruce Wayne when he gets back. That's and right. There's a moment where like Bruce is reading this letter from his dad, like talking to his son. And like there's like a tear hits the page as Batman's reading and he thanks the Flash, and it's just amazing. We didn't get that. We got Keaton Batman though, so that's something.
But the emotional stuff was there. Barry, Ezra Miller did a great job of conveying it. Like when he realized his mom has to die. He realizes his mom has to die, but maybe he has a way he can save his dad. That he can prove his dad's innocent. And I thought that was done really well. Again, it was kind of predictable. Like I saw it right away. Like I'm like, oh, this. So he's either gonna do something with the hat or he's gonna do something with the tomatoes. Like I knew it was coming. I liked it. I thought that all was really well. The emotional stuff was great. The fight scenes are great. The best scene of the movie is them probably getting Kara out of the Siberian like prison.
Yeah.
You know, and that followed Flashpoint pretty well. I mean, I know it's not Kara in Flashpoint, but like the whole like has been locked up since a young age, has never seen the sun. She's
like pinner, sickly, like bones.
Yep.
And then hits the sun and grows.
But there's that big emotional scene where Barry, when they realize it's not Clark, it's not Superman, like Batman's like, we got to go. And Barry's like, no, I got to take her. I got to save her. Like, it doesn't matter if I know who she is or not. I got to save her. She can't leave her like this. And that kind of becomes her motivation to help them. Fights on.
Yeah.
You know, because she doesn't care for humans because of what they've done to her. But then that becomes her motivation because she realizes that some people are good.
Yeah. I liked her.
There's a lot to talk about this movie.
I liked her as Supergirl. Honestly, I thought she was, I thought she was going to be a lot more in the movie and a bigger character, but it felt more like she was like a plot device and less of a character.
That's her first movie.
Really?
She's a soap opera star.
Oh, she did great. And like, she did a good job of conveying like the realization that Cal was dead and like turning that into an anger of like, I'm going to do anything to try to kill you. I liked that. Things about the Flash that I really can't stand and things I really like. I couldn't stand in the other movies when we finally got to see Ezra Flash like run. They made him a guy who's supposed to be running at faster than the speed of light. They made him like this really sloppy, like slow motion run while he's going fast. And it looked so dumb and dorky in the movies. And I just felt like you got a guy who's supposed to be looking like he's running fast and you got him looking like he doesn't know how to run at all. Like he looks like an idiot. And they started out too. Yes. And they started out and brought it back in this movie. Only in the beginning, he really kind of ran like that. And slowly as the movie went on, like they did a good job of incorporating kind of the Flash being the Flash and doing things at Flash speed. And I thought that was cool that they kind of talked about like, because a lot of people ask like, whoa, why wouldn't the Flash just do this to save that person? And he has to have a moment to be like, you can't just grab someone at that speed and move. You can only move a little bit and do a little, or it'll really mess them up or make them sick or potentially kill them. And they showed there was a difference between like young Barry and older Barry and how they ran and how their little starting sprints, even the color of their speed. One was like blue/white. Here's the thing I freaking can't stand. It's like, why did you put this in the movie? And why is this a thing? I know it was in the last movie, but like, the whole time, like the whole like having to eat food every 5 seconds and like doing that in the middle of doing stuff. Like, does Barry mention in the comics that he needs to eat a lot of calories to be able to run? Yes. Is he picking hot dogs out of random strangers' mouths every 5 seconds? No. And they have that all over the movie.
Constantly.
And it's just like all over. Like, it's just so, like, even at one point, which I think was kind of a cool scene at the very beginning, where this skyscraper is going down and he's got to save hospital. That's like a skyscraper downtown, big giant building. It's fallen down, which there's like newborn babies fall out the window.
Well, that's why I said hospital. I knew you were going to talk about the babies. I want to make sure you understand it's a hospital.
Yeah. I immediately was like, oh my God, we're having babies fall out of a freaking window. But like, as he's going to save them, like he takes a moment to like microwave food. And I know it's like he needs to get food for the energy to be able to save them. But it was like, it's so weird. Like, just have him do Flash stuff and be fast. And like, he put a baby in a microwave too, by the way.
He did, to protect it. That scene though, that one kind of started the path of like the shitty CGI though. Like,
yeah.
I was watching that and I'm like, this looks terrible. I hope the rest of the movie gets better. It does not.
It didn't. Yeah, it did not. Yeah.
Boy, there's so much to talk about in this movie. There's a lot of things he did right. There's a lot of things. The CGI is so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And there's issues with the writing and some of the stuff that they do that's not good. And like, you know, the food stuff, like maybe it's trivial, but it's dumb. It is dumb. It doesn't need to be in there.
In a lot of the movie. Like, it's literally a part of
I'm just thinking like
scenes.
Scene after scene, you know, where it's a plot point.
I like that they had phasing in it. I thought that was cool. That they had phasing
the movie's a mess. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Listen, I didn't like, I didn't say I like it, and I wouldn't say I dislike it. So based on that, it's a 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give it a 5.5. I'm going to give it a 5.5 because I think I liked it a little bit more than I disliked it.
Yeah.
But I have to see it again because I need to see how I feel about the movie after I've watched it once.
Yeah, because that's kind of where I'm at. I need to see it again.
But I think that has to do a lot with the disappointment because I was so hyped, you know, and it's not the DCEU savior I'd hoped it would be.
Yeah, that's like, it could have been a movie that they used to like step into the new universe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they could have easily reset everything by using this movie to do that. And they didn't. Not that they had to do it, but it seemed like that would have been like the smart thing to do.
Man, I thought that was what was going on because I'd heard that. Like, there'd been comments made.
I mean,
like,
that was kind of
all to throw us off or what.
I feel like that was the whole kind of thought process way back when the movie originally got announced, was like, because Henry wasn't coming back, but Wonder Woman was, and like Ben Affleck Batman wasn't coming back, but
George Clooney's is.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. So like, I thought that's what they were going to do. It really feels like all of the theatrical releases of the Snyderverse movies that, like, for whatever reason, they made decisions that you just scratch your head. You're like, why was that the thing you decided on?
You're right.
So speaking of Ben Affleck Batman, one, I hated the suit that they had him in. It was fucking super weird. And even in the trailer, you could tell like it was supposed to be like blue gray, but then it like kind of was, or maybe it was just kind of a weird gray.
Well, it didn't look like the cowl matched the rest of the suit either.
Nothing looked like it went together. I hated like it looked like kind of spider web, like metal meshing buckles that he had on his legs and but what I found out right before going into the movie was that Ben didn't want to get in the costume at all. So all of the Batman scenes with Ben Affleck's Batman are all filmed with his stunt double playing him. So because I knew that going into it, that's all I could see. And tomorrow when you see it, that's all you will see, because you can really tell that it looks nothing like Ben Affleck under the cowl.
Even the close-ups, it's him in the close-ups though.
No, he
way.
did not. He did not get in the Batman suit for this movie. So he is.
So why
in the
even
movie.
have him in it?
They have him in the movie to be his Bruce Wayne. So he's in the movie.
Why?
But all of the Batman scenes with him in Batsuit are his stunt double. And I will say, like, they tried to
again.
I think they went out of their way to really let's get a lot of Batman in here. We'll get a good chase scene with him, and I like Ben Affleck's Batman a ton in Batman vs Superman. I think, other than him killing every human being left and right, but that's neither here nor there. The problem with the Snyderverse or DCEU or however you want to say it is Bruce Wayne Batman is a totally different character in every single movie. Like he's not the same Batman, Bruce Wayne in any of them. And
you're right.
Anyways, so I like that they brought him back. I wish they would have, even the Justice League movies, I hated that they updated his costume. Like they immediately go into making Batman's costume like this armored plated thing, like in every Batman movie ever. The first Batman Begins, it wasn't totally like that. He was a little bit more Batman normal. And then all of a sudden he's got this weird like tactical suit, and Justice League all of a sudden is tactical. But Batman v Superman is the best Batman suit of all. Anyways, way off track from this movie. That's kind of how the movie was. It was a mess.
It's a mess. I gave my review. What do you score it?
I wanted to say a 7. Because I don't think it's a bad movie, but like it's a 6.5. It's between 6 and 6.5, because I'll see it again and I want to own it, and I'll probably watch it, and my kids will probably love it.
I agree.
But,
I'm going to say this, and I said this to Tony when we were driving home last night. It almost seems like when this whole James Gunn's taken over DC and they got rid of Henry and all this, and there was all this hate and stuff. And then, there was all these rumors that The Flash was a great movie, right? Like it was going to be great and everybody's going to be excited and super hyped for it. It almost seems like they shit so much on the CGI that like, it's almost like they did it intentionally. Like, did they want us to hate this movie? Like I came out of this movie and I was like, well, I guess I'm glad it's over. We'll see what James Gunn does. I mean, that's just like the thought I had. I know that doesn't make any sense because, why would you sabotage something like that? But it's
But like I had said earlier, I think they truly were like, it costs a lot of money to do CG and to polish and make it look good. Like it costs a lot of money to do that.
Star Wars had better effects in 1977.
This movie needed it got taken out of the oven way too soon. It needed a lot longer if they were going to put kind of the effort to do the CG.
But this movie got delayed multiple times.
I know. I'm just saying in terms of like what
were they doing?
What did the movie need? It needed the CG to be way cleaned up.
Yeah.
Zod, like I freaking love Zod, and they like he really makes it interesting because of his acting, but like visually it was hard to watch. So
it is. It is.
Yeah. So I don't really.
That's all I got.
It's The Flash. Go see it. I mean, like I said, it's hard. I think that it will be a fun movie for my kids to watch. It'll be a movie that I enjoy. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I think that's the biggest thing that
I was disappointed,
difficult.
And it was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two biggest takeaways.
Yeah.
All right. Kyle. One segment left. There can be only 5.
Only 5. Let's jump into this.
Take us in.
Am I starting this out?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, I wanted originally to do like top 5 Batmans because we've been on a Batman theme, and the other one that we're going to do today like already made me angry. So I'm like, you know what? Let's palate cleanse. Let's just do something fun. It's not necessarily just us loving up Batman. I'm like, you know what? This movie was all about time travel and things like that. Like, what about time travel movies? Let's do our top 5 time travel movies. And honestly, when I first decided we were going to do our top 5 time travel movies,
or franchises.
Movies or movie franchises. So that saves us from doing like a certain franchise, like 3 movies or 2 of those movies. I thought it was going to be a lot easier to list, but then as I was like kind of cruising through and looking at movies, I was like, wait, should this be movies that have a time machine specifically, or like, can we just do time travel? Like,
it's your rules.
At that point,
whatever you want.
At that point, I was like, well, whatever. I had a piece of paper.
I'm at work and like you told me what the topic was going to be. I wrote down like 20 different things and I'm like, I got to get this to 5.
Yeah, I've got a good group of those that like I would have a lot of honorable mentions. I'm not going to do any of them, but there are a ton of time travel movies that are awesome and cool that are not in this list.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was going through the list, these were the 5 movies that I like wanted to talk about, and I'm like, I like that movie, I love it, so I'm just going to put it in there.
All right.
One of which I'll start off with 5, and Howie actually texted me, and I immediately pulled it out of my list. It's the only time we've ever talked about something pre show on these lists
because I was joking.
But this is a movie that I actually really liked as a kid. We watched it a ton in our house. Time Cop with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, man.
I don't know what it is about that movie. It is so weird. It felt like, for us, it felt like the first like serious movie that we watched where like there was people dying and guy jumps out of a building and splats on the concrete.
It's one of his worst movies, though.
It's not his best movie,
right?
But for whatever reason, I loved it as a kid. I really liked the concept. Jean-Claude Van Damme is a cop that they go back in time to stop things that happen, and he gets framed, and it turns into this whole thing. Anyways,
it's like Minority Report before Minority Report.
Yeah, it was the original Minority Report.
Right, correct.
So, here's another one that I'm gonna get fucking roasted for putting this in my list. But man, the second that like it came to mind, I like bumped movies out of my top 5. I was like, oh, I gotta have that in there. It's not a good movie, but I love it. Ninja Turtles 3. They go back in time. This is a zany movie where they get the time scepter, and it takes all 4 of them back to feudal Japan, and they are basically samurai ninjas. And speaking of which, NECA, who does the movie quality Turtles, my 1990 Ninja Turtles right there, they just announced they're coming out with the 4 turtles from Ninja Turtles 3. So we're getting those samurai ninjas, and I'm definitely going to buy them. So anyways, just crazy movies, zany. They go back in time and they have to find their way back, and I loved it. Okay, number 3. Honestly, I would love to have this higher on this list, but I felt like quality of movie didn't like this. It couldn't be, but this is number 1 in my heart. I just recently rewatched this movie. It's been years since I've seen it, but I watched it with Grayson one morning a couple days ago. Star Trek First Contact. Star Trek First Contact. This is Next Generation cast. So Jean-Luc Picard. Honestly, if you're not a Star Trek fan, this movie is awesome. Basically,
I agree.
Have you seen it?
Oh, I have all the Star Treks on Blu-ray.
Oh, love that. It's so good. If you haven't watched Star Trek First Contact in a while, you need to go watch it. It's a cool kind of situation. Basically, the Borg show up. They're attacking Earth, or they're attacking the Federation. They're going to destroy everyone. And as they're entering Earth, they disappear and they go into the past. And so the Enterprise follows them into the past. And when they get there, they basically find that the Borg have gone to stop First Contact. Basically, like the Federation or Star Trek, the humans, they basically take a rocket up and do warp speed. They do like a test of warp speed for the first time in human history, and it catches the eye of a Vulcan ship that's going by. That brings the Vulcans to Earth to meet humans, and basically it's the first contact between humans and aliens. And that is what starts basically down the road of the Federation and the whole Star Trek thing. It all starts from this first contact. So the Borg come back to kill those people so that it never happens, and basically that everything gets erased. And the main character that they're trying to save, Zephyr Cochrane, he's looked at in the future and all through Starfleet as like the best of everyone, and he's just this god of Starfleet, and like that he's a space travel like savant. And it turns out he like is not. He's a degenerate. He's an alcoholic. He just wants to create this rocket so he can make money and go live on an island, and then ends up finding out that he's important and he doesn't want to be important. Mm-hmm. It's freaking awesome. I went way too much into detail, but if you haven't seen that movie in a long time, even if you don't like Star Trek, watch that movie. Number 2, this movie, it's not really time travel in per se of like a time machine or things like that, but it has to do with jumping in time and going into the future. Interstellar. Mm-hmm. Like, this is one of my favorite movies. We talk a lot about space kind of operas and epics. I love this movie. Matthew McConaughey, Christopher Nolan. Earth is basically coming to an end, and they're trying to find potentially habitable planets, and he has to leave his family to do that. He's a father of a daughter and a son, and like as he's on this trek to find a planet to maybe get human life off of Earth, they land on planets that basically, because of their size and gravity and wormholes and things like that like they land on a water planet that they're there for like 15 minutes, but 15 minutes on that planet is 22 years in the grand scheme of things. And so he leaves and his daughter's like 13. And by the end of the movie, when he gets back to find her, which in Matthew McConaughey's world, in his life, it's only like a month or two that he's gone on this trek. But for her, he finds her basically on her deathbad when she's like 85.
Like 90 something. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's saved because he has spoken to her through, he goes into the black hole and it turns into this whole thing. But because he talked with her, she was able to save humanity and get them off Earth, etc. So great freaking movie. Number 1, best time travel movie of all time. We're all talking about franchise movie, whatever you want to say. Back to the Future. Man, if you say a movie, you say time travel movie, you immediately think of Back to the Future.
Of course.
Because, Gun It to 88, that's like, this is the movie that did it the best. Movies. I actually really like the Western version.
I did too. I liked all 3 of them.
Yeah. I think the third one is the third one the cowboy one, or the second one's the
third one's cowboy one. The last one.
Yeah, 1 and 3 are my favorite. The second one is kind of like,
I agree.
But man, Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox, it's a bummer for what's happened to him, and he's gone through with his health because man, like if he didn't have that health situation, he probably would be like Tom Cruise, like maybe not action wise, but like he was just an awesome actor, and he does so good as Marty McFly. Like great movies. Back to the Future, they are seminal movies. You should watch it once a year or every couple of years. I have not introduced my kids to them yet, but I think they are going to like them once they get older. Too. So anyways, but time travel movies. I left out a lot. You're going to roast me. There's a lot
No, I'm not going to roast you. We kind of had to. Because I did more franchises.
Oh, cool.
So I have multiple movies in a grouping, and I'll explain that. So number 5, I put Groundhog Days, and I'm going to explain this. All right.
Nice. So I did see that on some list.
Groundhog Day is an all-time classic comedy from the 90s. Basically, Bill Murray's trapped in I'm sure everybody's seen this movie. He's trapped in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and it's Groundhog Day over and over again. And it's basically like the whole premise of the movie is he's like a piece of crap news reporter that like he gets trapped in this time paradox to basically become a better human. Like and then once he does, he gets out. Like that's the whole premise of the movie. You never think this guy's going to get out. And finally when he's changed, it's almost like Groundhog Day's Scrooged, when he's
just going to say, it's like Scrooge.
He's finally changed. So the reason I put Groundhog Days is because that concept's been used in different movies in different ways, where it's basically like it's a time loop, and there's
I know where you're going.
There's a time loop, and then there's something that has to like there's a resolution that has to happen. So I threw just like, these are kind of honorable mentions in the light of a la Groundhog Day. Edge of Tomorrow, I've talked about before.
I knew you were going to do
The
that.
Tom
I knew that's
Cruise
where you're
alien
going.
movie where he gets caught in a time loop and he has to like figure out how to beat the aliens. So that's a great movie. Source Code, if you've never seen that, Jake Gyllenhaal, where he's kind of in this train and somebody's going to blow up the train and he's got to figure out, and it's kind of got a weird like twist ending in it. And I wasn't a huge fan, but that one was made by Duncan Jones. If you've ever seen Moon.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a movie. Moon.
So Source Code, it's really well done. It's got this weird twist, kind of sad ending, but like he's basically got to figure out how to stop this from happening. And then Happy Death Day, I threw a shout out to, just as a horror movie, where it's kind of the same thing where this gal gets killed over and over again until she finds her killer. So that's what I had. Number 5, I had the Groundhog Days. Number 4, I just put Star Trek. And so I had First Contact listed because I put Star Trek as a franchise. First Contact, the
San
J.J.
Francisco
Abrams
one too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. The J.J. Abrams one where we have old Spock meeting new Spock and like how it kind of like it basically starts this new timeline, and that's how we got this new Star Trek, the Chris Pine Star Trek. And it's kind of I like the way they made that and they tied it all together. I don't want to delve too much into it, but and then Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. They have to go back to like modern day San Francisco in the 80s. Listen, like we talk about some of the greatest trilogies of all time. I don't know if we could ever say that movies 2, 3, and 4, when you talk about the original Star Trek movies, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and Voyage Home, that's an epic trilogy that basically it's all kind of ties together.
Yeah.
Star Trek, the motion picture, is one of the worst ones. 1 and 5 are not as good. 2, 3, and 4, that's an awesome, like one giant story arc trilogy. So, and then First Contact on there as well. So I put those as Star Trek in there as a franchise at number 4.
I love that. I didn't realize you knew anything about Star Trek. So let's go.
I've seen them all. Number 3, I had Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, nice. I saw that on a list or two.
I love Bill and Ted. Like I kind of did this one as a franchise too. I like Excellent Adventure. I like Bogus Journey. Face the Music, whatever you think about it, it was kind of neat to see those guys again. But Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, as dumb and like as cheesy late 80s movie as that is, that's where we got Keanu Reeves. Yeah. It's a cool movie. George Carlin as Rufus is awesome. The whole, like, they have to like ace this project so they can do Battle of the Bands because they're going to save the universe someday. The whole story's crazy, but it's fun. So I put Bill and Ted. Number 2, I have Back to the Future at number 2 as a franchise.
Ooh, number 2. Okay, I'm interested to hear one.
I'm doing franchises. So I did Back to the Future at number 2. The trilogy's great. They do progressively. Number 1 is an all-time classic movie. Like it's one of the greatest movies of the 80s. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. Yeah. Number 2 is cool. Like you get this glimpse of like the 2016, something like that. It's in that timeline area.
Old rich Biff.
Yeah. You get the dark Donald Trump version of Biff is basically what they said they based the character on. You get old rich Biff, like that owns the casinos and he's, a scoundrel, but
McFly.
The whole storyline where he goes back in time and gets a sports almanac and he wins all this money betting on horse races and football games and all. It's cool. It's a cool story. Yeah, I know, right? It's a cool story and it's cool. And then the third one in the Old West, like the whole like Good, Bad, and the Ugly with Michael J. Fox, where he's Clint Eastwood and I love it. I think it's cool. I love that franchise. Number 1, and I had this movie number 1 on a list not that long ago.
I was just going to say,
I have the Terminator franchise. It's Terminator.
I love it.
I don't care how crappy after 3 they are. You can even say, if you want to say 3's crappy, you can. Like number 1 and number 2 are all-time science fiction action classic movies. We've talked about Terminator 2 before. I love that movie. It's awesome the way they do time travel. The whole point of it is to save the world in the future. Yeah. They send these machines back in time to kill the mom of the savior of humanity before he's ever conceived.
Yeah.
And then in the second one, it's like, we're going to kill him as a child. I love Terminator. I think it's great. I think those are all time. I think that's probably because those 1 and 2 are both so great. That's the best time travel franchise. I had it
I
like
love
when I'm
that
making this list. I had movies like I had Interstellar was on there at one point. I had Looper on there at one point. Like there's
Oh, I
some
had Looper as my honorable mention, but I ended up
man.
not
At one
doing
point, I
honorable
even wrote
mentions.
down like Hot Tub Time Machine, because like
Yes.
there's some awesome time travel movies. So this was a fun category to pick. But I knew you'd like Star Trek on that list, but it's an easy one to pick because there's multiple movies where time travel is so important.
Yeah,
Star Trek is very important franchise in television and games and movies and all that. Like obviously it's been around for 60 years. So
yeah. I love that you had Terminator in there. I actually the reason because I was gonna have it as an honorable mention. I originally had it in my top 5, but I get in like a mindset where I'm like, oh, we already talked about that, so I'm not going to put it in, even though I know it should be in that. Like,
yeah,
it's
I
all
get
based
that
on
line
the
of
whole
thought. Yeah.
the whole thing.
I had
is time
Days of
travel
Future
for that,
Past
so.
written down, and I'm like, God,
That's what I had too.
I just talked about that movie not that long ago. I don't want it, but so that's why I kind of went with franchises, was because of that. I even had Avengers Endgame written down at one point. And the reason like I had that written down is because the way they explain time travel in that movie, and it's a lot more scientific, and they even take the time to make fun of Quantum Leap and Back to the Future, and like it's not how time travel works.
Yeah. When I did, because I was kind of talking out loud to my wife about these when I was going through them. Days of Future Past, Terminator, those were in my list originally, and then when I came upon like Ninja Turtles 3, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna talk. I want to talk about that. So I did really like Days of Future Past. That I'll throw that as a great honorable mention. So good movies.
It is a good movie. So it's a good list. I like your list. It's good stuff. So this is an obvious. I picked this next one. Kyle was mad about it. I wanted to rank top 5 DCEU movies. And the reason Kyle's mad about it is because he thinks I picked it just to shit on DC movies.
He did. This is accurate.
Because I'm a Marvel guy. He texted
we literally typed it in this at the same exact time.
I'm doing this just to shit on DC movies.
Said, you just want to do this to talk shit on DC. And as I hit send, his text of I'm doing this just to talk shit on DC. Which is like, I don't know how you can be such a hater for DC. And this freaking universe.
As I go over this list, you'll understand why. And you gotta like listen. I don't hate DC as a property. I talked about how great the DC animated movies are. I like the shows. Like Batman's the coolest superhero ever. Like, it's the question is who's your favorite superhero and why is it Batman? Right? Superman is, arguably the second greatest superhero of all time. We're not ranking superheroes today, but like I like DC. I read DC. I liked Marvel a little better growing up. The Marvel movies are a lot better, other than Batman movies. They are. You can't. I mean, if you compare DCEU and MCU, it's not even. There's nothing. You can't. But Batman movies, like the Nolan trilogy, is better than. It is what it is. But like, I don't hate DC. But like, anyway,
I get. You don't have to give. You don't have to. I get it. They're not good. They're
bad.
It's sad it is sad that there is a generation of kids that didn't get to grow up with Keaton as their Batman.
Yeah, so I think there's
those types of things.
15 DCEU movies, and like it's hard to pick 5 good ones. I mean, that's just
I agree.
I did put an honorable mention because like I think this is a good movie. I really enjoyed it when it came out, so I put this on here. But there's a reason I just have it as an honorable mention. I put Zack Snyder's Justice League as an honorable mention. The original, because the original Justice League movie it's horrible. It's a terrible movie. Like they screwed up so much. You have all these characters, and you made a dumpster fire of a movie. Like I went and saw it in the theater, and I walked out, and I wasn't like The Flash. It wasn't like that's a mess. I went, that's bad. Like that's not good. I can't believe they screwed that up so bad. Like, I didn't think Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice was a good movie. You've talked about how the director's cut of that is much better. That was a bad movie. Justice League is even worse. It's terrible. So then they released this 4-hour Snyder cut on HBO Max. It happened during COVID, right? So it was, it was huge. Everybody watched it. And it was a cool movie. It's good. It tells all the things that it needed to tell. My problem, and this is why it's an honorable mention, it's a 4-hour movie. Shouldn't take you that long to make a good movie. Shouldn't. You should either be 2 movies or you should have done something different. And that's my thoughts on it, because you can't make a comic book movie a 4-hour movie, and that's the only way to make it good. You know, the 2-hour version was trash.
I think it was known that he wanted to do 2 parts, but because of like the situation of one, we never thought we were going to get a Snyder cut.
Yep.
Like that was a big deal of them asking for it.
Of course it was.
And so it was, and I think the mindset was like, we're getting a chance to do this, so I'm going to do as much as possible and add as much as I can, because this is my swan song.
But at the same time,
but I get where you're.
The biggest, and I'll say this: the biggest problem with the DCEU has, and you call it the Snyderverse, that's fine. The biggest problem with the DCEU isn't Zack Snyder; it's Warner Brothers. They screwed the pooch. Too much studio interference. If you're going to hire somebody to make a vision, and again, I'm hoping this is what James Gunn does. They're going to have somebody and they're going to run with their vision. Let them cook.
Yeah.
Stay out of the kitchen and let them cook. Okay.
Agreed.
All right. So number 5, I have the Suicide Squad, and that's the second one. That's the James Gunn Suicide Squad. That was on HBO Max. I think it's a really good movie. I like Idris Elba. I like that they made a sequel to what's arguably the worst DCEU movie. They made a pseudo sequel to it with a bunch of new characters, killed off a lot of the old ones. It's well done. It's a cool movie.
I thought when you first said that you were talking about the other one.
No, I said the Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad.
Me?
No.
Oh my God.
Give me the Ayer cut.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was good. I liked Harley Quinn. I love Idris Elba. John Cena's Peacemaker was awesome. That was a cool movie. Even Sylvester Stallone as King Shark the whole movie was cool. I liked it. Number 4, I
forgot about it.
Oh. It's Shazam at number 4. I enjoyed that movie. I think it's rewatchable. I thought Zachary Levi was really great as Shazam. I liked the story. I like Mark Strong as the bad guy. I thought it was cool. I really did. I liked that movie overall. I thought they did a good job. I kind of liked the second one too. It's not top 5, but I didn't dislike it. It was a little bit more annoying. Like I thought the kid persona was overplayed too much when he's older. Like he's like 18 now. Quit playing him like he's a 12-year-old. Like it got to be a little too much in the sequel. But put Shazam at number 4. I put Aquaman at number 3. I liked Aquaman. I thought that was a cool movie. I really liked the casting decision of Jason Momoa as Arthur Curry. I thought it was cool. I liked Orm, Patrick Wilson as the villain. I like that. I liked the way they portrayed Black Manta. I thought that was cool. I want to see more of him because he's such an iconic villain to Aquaman. The whole story was neat. I thought the whole battle at the end where he gets the trident and I like that movie. I think it's well done. I think it's funny in the right moments. I think Jason Momoa is a good fit for that character because they made him interesting, which I thought was going to be the hardest thing for them to do, was to make Aquaman interesting on film.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was the biggest thing. Was I think they nailed the casting, even though he doesn't look anything like Arthur Curry in the comic books. But I think they nailed it, and I liked it. And I was excited. I
like the actor that plays Boba Fett, but I just didn't like him as the dad.
Sure.
He's just kind of a weird.
Yeah, I got it.
Which we just got to see him again in the Flash. So
that's true. Number 2, I had Man of Steel. I think this movie is viewed very poorly, and I don't think it's fair. I think Henry Cavill is Superman. He's my Superman. I like Christopher Reeve as Superman. I think Henry's better. I'll say that. And I know that's probably a hot take. I
think it's accurate. I agree.
I think Henry was great in that role. I think he was perfect. Like in the casting pantheon of how they nailed castings as superheroes, like probably Hugh Jackman's number 1 as Wolverine. Henry might be number 2 as Superman. I just think they nailed it.
For sure.
Knocked it out of the park. He plays that. He plays that
He
humble.
looks like him.
He does, man. Like
he looks like what you think Superman would
Henry
look like.
Cavill looks more like Superman than Superman does. Like,
yes,
that's the way it is.
Facts.
That movie's really well done. Like, we've talked about Zod earlier. I'm not going to go more into that. That was he was awesome. Like, I think Amy Adams' Lois Lane was great. I liked the whole movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. We talked about, you know, the people that were up in arms about Superman killing Zod at the end. I think about that scene a lot because I know it was a big point of contention. Henry does such a great job of conveying how much that breaks him when he has to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, the argument is that Superman would never do it, but in the movie they make it like there's no other choice. Like, it's all these people die or Zod dies, and like he has to pick one or the other. And you know, was it the ultimate choice? Was it the only way? I don't know, but I think the way he conveys how it broke him is very important to the, you know, the character and the role. I really like Man of Steel. I think it's like a 50 something on Rotten Tomatoes, which is hogwash.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a really great movie. Number one, I have Wonder Woman. I think the original Wonder Woman movie is the best thing DCU put out by far. I think it's up there with some of the greatest superhero movies ever. The way they had it set, you know, during World War I is amazing. That scene where she crosses no man's land.
Yep.
Is really cool. Like, yeah, it's, again, this is like Aquaman. They made some of her backstory more interesting than I think it, you know, the comics. Sometimes those comics, you can't, it's cool to read it in a comic book. It's hard to translate some of that stuff to the big screen.
Yeah.
The Amazons and the, you know, the way Wonder Woman is this demigod basically, and you know, Ares is pulling all a literal god of war is pulling all the strings and all this. Like, I think the whole movie's cool. I like the characters. I think Chris Pine's great. I like the entire, like, that, whatever they're called, the Howling Commandos that she's, you know, with in the movie. I think that all things great. The only issue I really have with that movie is the villain.
Yeah. Yep.
Is Ares. Like, David Thewlis is Ares. Like, I like that guy as an actor. I just was like, I didn't buy it, but maybe that's the whole point, because you're not supposed to think it's him at all, and then at the end you find out he's the bad guy. But
yeah,
it's cool movie.
When he's not really like he's not like a villain who's like driving the plot, like. Right. And then when he finally find out that he's the villain, then I did like that they put him in his, like, he looked like Ares, like when he switches to comic book Ares. I thought that was something good that they did with it.
Yeah. But that's number one. I feel bad that, like, I thought 1984 was terrible.
I didn't even finish it. I started it. I didn't see it in theater. I started it and like, I didn't even finish it. So
this is not very good. But that's it. I mean, honestly, like, out of that list, like, I feel really good about 1 and 2. The 3, 4, and 5 I like them, but they're not great.
Yeah, I think for like mine, the levels are very like separate. I knew, I didn't necessarily know that you were going to have Wonder Woman at number 1. I assumed that you would, and I assumed that most people would say that that's the best movie out of all of the DCEU. It's hard to rank these movies because, like, when you don't like them or you don't like what they did with them, it's hard to say, like, this is a number 5 movie. So,
but this is our bon voyage to the DCEU.
Yeah, we're saying fare thee well. My number 5 is actually a tie between the new Flash that we just saw and the Shazam movie. I think I put Flash in my top 5, which I think a lot of people are going to walk out of the movie and think like that is not a good movie or that's not in top 5. But Keaton Batman coming back, getting the Flashpoint story, like all of that is worth, like, I will probably watch that movie. Not a lot, but I will rewatch that movie and not just the one time. So Shazam, I think they did a really good job. I think in its self-contained as one movie, it was a great Shazam movie. I think they waited way too long to do the second one. Like they waited too long. The actor got older and looks old, and like no one really cares about that. They just waited too long. They should have done it a year or two right after, and it might have been more interesting of a franchise. But I like the movie. Number 4, I know, like I said, I think people have this ranked as like number 1 or 2 of the best movies in the universe. But for me, I love this movie. I thought it was a great movie, but it just wasn't cracking the top 3. Wonder Woman. I love the movie. The score in it is great. I think what they've done with like the score for Wonder Woman, anytime she walks in and that fucking electric guitar hits, it's like, oh, let's fucking go. No Man's Land scene was awesome. They did a great job with that. I liked that movie a lot. Chris Pine is like one of my top favorite actors, so like I'll watch anything with him in it. There's just the only reason why I didn't have it high on my list is there's not a lot of rewatchability of that movie for me. Like, I don't think I'll go and rewatch it more like I haven't gone and rewatched it like I've watched these next ones. Okay. So that was kind of why that didn't get higher on the list. Number 3, Batman vs. Superman director's cut. I know a lot of people hated this movie. They thought it was horrible. The theatrical version was not good.
I'm actually with you on the rewatchability point. Like I would think Wonder Woman's a better movie, but I agree. Like I think I would watch Batman versus Superman again before I'd watch Wonder Woman.
For sure. And that actually had a lot to do with where these ended up on my rankings. And I almost had BVS as number 2, but Batman vs. Superman in the theatrical release, they set up a lot of plot points that they didn't like, that they literally never like wrapped up. They never mentioned. They just said things and then you never saw it again. Like they did zero, like the whole branding Batman does when he brands people. They did no other scenes about it. They never really mentioned like the purpose and what it does. And the director's cut adds so much context to so many other scenes in the movie that it becomes a much better movie. I have issues with Batman, with the Dark Knight Returns Batman versus Superman fight happening without any of the like backstory I've talked about in the last episode. I won't go into too much, but like them not knowing each other and having zero relationship, and now all of a sudden they hate each other and they're having the end of their career fight. I don't like that, but I do like Ben Affleck's Batman in this movie. In the Justice League movies, he's a totally different character. In this movie, I love angry, grizzled, old Bruce Wayne Batman.
I agree.
He is exactly like he is in the Dark Knight Returns.
He plays it extremely well,
which was the purpose. They really were going for that.
It's obvious if you know that story. We talked about that last week. If you know that story, it's obvious that's what he's doing, and he does a great job. I mean, I would sit here and say like he's 3rd or 4th best Batman based on that alone.
Yes. Which is so weird because a lot of people don't like the movie. And I think it's hard for people to wrap their head around him being a good Batman when the story we got was like in canon, that's way after his career. It's like he's been retired and he comes back. And so like I really thought if they went back and did more Batman movies, like it could have been amazing if they went the pre that. Like I mentioned earlier, like his Batman suit in that movie is like one of, if not the best, most comic book accurate suits. It's not armor plated. It's just like the gray was the first gray bat suit that we got in film. And it just looked like when they first dropped the picture of him in his bat costume for the first time.
Sad
like,
Batman.
Yeah, where he's like looking down and he's by the Batmobile. I was like, this is the fucking best Batman that we're ever going to get on screen visually. But anyways, that movie is actually really good if you watch the director's cut and you actually pay attention. The Martha thing is stupid. The shoehorning in a really good. I mean, if you think about it, Batman vs Superman did like two very major comic book stories that are loved: The Death of Superman, where he fights Doomsday,
Yeah.
and Dark Knight Returns. Like, we have a live action movie of Dark Knight Returns and Doomsday, Death of Superman in movies, but there's just something about how they did it that just didn't hit. And obviously they cut out most of the movie when they dropped it in theaters. So anyways, give that movie another try if you
I'm
haven't in a
going
while.
to ask real quick, because I don't think you and I've ever talked about this. What do you think of Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor?
He is for me, he is the biggest downfall of the movies.
Yeah, same.
He didn't understand. It's very clear that he doesn't know Lex Luthor's character,
Right.
and didn't do any
He's Jesse Eisenberg playing Lex Luthor. He's
Yes,
not Lex Luthor.
Exactly. And that is like, I know a lot of people were like, well, Lex Luthor is bald. Actually, he does have hair kind of just like Jesse Eisenberg does early in the comics, but that's not the Lex Luthor we want or know or care about. And I agree. We got Jesse Eisenberg as the bad guy, not Lex Luthor. And so because of that, I think that's a big reason. People don't really correlate that with why they don't like the movies, but I think that is a big reason why the movies were not
huge reason.
Great.
Yeah, you screw up the villain, that happens.
Yeah, he is horrible as Lex Luthor. So, like, so much so, like, I just don't even want to watch him. Like, number 2 for me, Justice League, the Zack Snyder cut. When this movie dropped, it like totally changed how I looked at the Justice League movie, which it's hard to hate on the Justice League movie because like Zack Snyder's son died in the middle of filming.
His daughter.
Pretty close to being. I thought it was his son.
His daughter.
Are you sure? Well,
keep talking. Really keep talking.
Anyways, I thought his son killed himself.
His daughter did. Keep talking.
Anyway, so he loses a kid, and so they basically like couldn't continue filming, but then they reshot a lot of stuff and they edited this just monster, this Frankenstein horrible movie.
Suicide of his daughter Autumn.
Wow, I thought it was his son this whole time. Wow, I'm gonna look like an idiot on this pod. Anyways, but like you can't blame for like the situation, so it didn't really it because of a lot of that is why we got this horrible other movie. But the Zack Snyder cut is really good. They make the main villain actually interesting. He is completely different in this version than the theatrical version.
Big old pussy.
Yes. And in this version, he's interesting. He's formidable. He looks a lot cooler because they totally changed kind of what he looked like.
It was the same CGI as the Flash that did the original Justice League version of Steppenwolf.
Facts.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Facts. So I like though I know it's super long. You could definitely tell the differences in Bruce Wayne Batman from the theatrical release to this, like that they were totally two different people. I really enjoyed this movie. Like when we watched it, I remember like me and my buddy Matt and Steph, we sat and like watched it start to finish, like, and we're like blown away when it was done of like, this was so good. This made me like a lot of these characters that I didn't like. We got all the Cyborg stuff that we never got in the theatrical movie. So like
that movie did him the most justice.
Yes. And which makes sense of why he's so angry with everything after the fact. So anyways, I actually think that is a really good movie. Once it sucks that it takes these director's cuts and these like, this is what I wanted the movie to be coming out for us to actually get a good version. And then my number 1, and this movie is honestly way above the others on a whole different level, is Man of Steel. I loved this movie. When I walked out of the theater, I felt the same as I did when I walked out of The Dark Knight. I thought like, wow, they hit Superman so perfect. That Henry Cavill is Superman. If you look at the cast, it's insane.
It's great.
Henry Cavill, freaking, we get Kevin Costner. Are you kidding me? We get freaking Gladiator, Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe and the cast are Superman's dads. Like, dope. Diane Lane as his mom. Like,
Martha.
Yeah, that's a whole separate. But they do just. I love the movie. I think they did a great job. It doesn't feel like the other movies feel, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't have that DC, like Warner Bros, like trying to make it something it's not, trying to become a Marvel movie, adding funny stuff in it just to have it. Like, it's self-contained. I think it's an awesome movie. I think a lot of people look at it, like look down upon it because of that final scene where he ends up killing Zod.
Mm-hmm.
But like, Michael Shannon's Zod is amazing. When he early in the movie, when after they've kind of done their coup and they get in trouble and they're getting sent to the Phantom Zone, when he's like yelling to Superman's mom and saying like, I will find him. And then he lets out and he screams it again, like, I will find him. Like, that is such a badass movie scene. It's one of my favorite movie scenes of all time. It's just, there's some power to it. So he was awesome as Zod. I love that they kind of like the battle between them and the mind games between them. I think it's an awesome Superman movie. I have people look down upon it because they think of the Superman and all the stuff from the Justice League movies. And they correlate it with it, but self-contained, it's freaking awesome. And I wish we would have got Man of Steel too. So
I agree.
But yeah, anyways, that's my number one. There's number one, and then all the other ones are way down here. Man of Steel is probably the only good movie in all those, I would say. Maybe Zack Snyder's Justice League, but yeah, that's my list. This is we again, once again, we went longer than we ever have.
This is the norm now.
Short.
This is the normal. It's fine. It's because you talk about First Contact for 12 minutes.
I really wanted to take this opportunity to make people go watch that movie.
Like, listen, Star Trek is a franchise, whether it's the Shatner and Nimoy movies, the 6 of them, or the Generations, First Contact, Nemesis movies, right? The Next Generation movies, or even the new ones. Like Star Trek and I don't know I don't remember what they're called. Beyond. What was the second one?
Which is kind of crazy because we got freaking Doctor Strange playing Khan, like Chris Pine as Kirk, and freaking
Cumberbatch
is Khan. Like, that should be a great movie. Maybe I need to rewatch it.
I think it is a great movie. Into Darkness. It is a great movie.
Yeah. I like them.
They're all good.
It sucks when you cast one character terribly and they cast, maybe not that they cast Spock terribly, but the way they had him act and hate Chris Pine and feel like he's a villain to him all the time. I just couldn't get over that.
Yeah, I like the casting. I mean, Zachary Quinto Spock.
Yeah.
Zoe Saldana Uhura. I'm like drawing blanks. Anton, what's his name? He died. He's Chekhov.
He was playing Chekhov.
Listen, the whole thing, Harold from Harold and Kumar.
Yeah.
Like the whole, the cast it's amazing. Who was the bad guy in the first one? Do you remember?
It was Banner, not Bruce Banner, but the guy who played Hulk.
Eric Bana.
Bana. That's what I always call him as
Eric
Hulk.
Bana. Yeah. Eric Bana is the villain in the first one. Benedict Cumberbatch is the villain in the second one. Idris Elba is the villain in the third one. Are you kidding me? Like,
yeah, they should be great.
It should be great. I don't think they're bad at all. I think they're all good movies.
I agree.
So Star Trek's a franchise worth watching. I don't listen. The whole thing is there's too many comparisons with people who are like Star Wars. Are you Star Wars or Star Trek?
You don't have to be. Both.
You don't have to compare either. Listen, one's about space or Civil War. One's about space exploration. They're not even in the same. Yeah, they're in
totally
space.
Different.
They start with star. That's it. It stops there.
Yeah.
It's different. You can like both.
Yeah.
I like both. Do I like Star Wars more? Yeah, I do. But like people that like Star Trek better, don't turn your nose up because you're like, I like Star Trek better. No, you can like
Agreed.
both. I like both. They're good.
You
They're
should
just
like
different.
both. You
They're
should
different.
like both.
It's like
if
DC
you
and
like
Marvel.
Star Wars,
you can
you
like
should
both.
I like Marvel, okay? My son's named after Spider-Man. Damn it. Can we call it a day?
Yeah. But you can like both. You can have nice things.
Yeah. Por que no las dos, as Matt Bojanski would say from the Taco Bell commercial. Why not
Well,
both?
that brings us to the end of episode number 11 of the Movie Dads podcast. 2023 Batman 3 with The Flash as a cameo.
Yeah.
Man, just disappointing. I feel like this is the most somber episode because we're just like,
I know. I know. I was just gonna say we
wanted to be
like
so
our,
hyped.
We sound like our dog died. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't what I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. I'm a dad. I'm a disappointed father.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going to talk about it anymore, but yeah. I mean, like, and then we ended with the top 5 DCEU, so we just got made things sad again. So DCEU, salute. You're done. Goodbye. Salute, bon voyage, or good riddance to bad rubbish. See you later. That'll get edited out. Just automatically. Background noise. Anyway, guys, that's the end of episode 11. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, give us the like, give us a subscribe, share our video. If you're checking us out on a podcast format, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podcast Index, like and subscribe. Leave comments. We love comments. We don't
comment.
They're bad
we
comments.
Want intellectual battles. We love them.
Usually interact with most of the comments. Like we try to in some point. So leave comments, like, subscribe, share. We love it. Find us out on social media at Movie Dads Pod, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Next week, I can't believe you haven't seen it. Kyle, we're going to watch Big Trouble in Little China. You've never seen Big Trouble in Little China.
I've not seen it.
The John Carpenter classic Big Trouble in Little China starring Kurt Russell. It's a cool movie. I think you're going to dig it. It's a good movie
that gave us Raiden from Mortal Kombat.
Well, kind of. There's a lot going on.
The movie came out before Mortal Kombat. They took the character from this movie.
Well, that's fair because it sure does seem like it's Raiden. But it's a cool movie, man. I think you're going to dig it.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm excited.
I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'm wondering how it's aged. So I'm excited too to kind of give that review. Like if I don't want to come in here and be like, man, that movie was way stupider than I remember, but I don't think it will.
All I'm going to do is compare it to Escape from LA. That's all I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's it's in that. It's in this one's more of an action horror sci-fi kind of movie, so a little different, but anyway, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week for episode 12. Bye.